You're probably watching this video because you wanted to gain a different understanding of Bittensor that nobody else is talking about, a key insight, something that is very unique. That is exactly what we're going to do in this video. We're going to take a look at the Bittensor network, but through a different lens than what everybody else is doing. We're going to take a look at website traffic. See, for bittensor.com, bittensor.org, we're going to take a look at the traffic on those websites as well as the keywords on those websites to understand what the collective, like the heartbeat of the world is saying about these. Is it gaining or losing? This is separate from just the price. Everybody else is looking at the price or like the developments on the network. Cool. Those are all awesome. Those are all fun. We're going to take a look at that as well a little bit. But one of the things that I want to dive into that I find most interesting is what's going to stimulate demand. So you have supply, which is fixed, and then you have demand. Demand is going to be stimulated by awareness in the marketplace. So what's going to drive that? Content creators. We're going to take a look at content creators on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube to get an understanding of, is the content creation around Bittensor increasing or decreasing, to gain a better understanding of this as time goes on, as well as Google search volume, YouTube search volume, all things that nobody else is talking about, so that we can gain a different perspective, a different understanding than what everybody else is doing in the marketplace as it pertains to Bittensor. This is what's going to impact the demand side. You have supply, right? That's already fixed, 7,200 tau per day. Now, how is the demand going to be stimulated over time? And that's what we're doing here. But first, if this is your first time here, what's good? My name is Sam, and for those of you who are returning, it's good to freaking say you. So, without further ado, let's get into the video. The first thing we're going to take a look at is data from tau stats. So we're going to take a look at the network first, then we're going to take a look at wrapped tau. So this is on the tau token that's been wrapped or bridged over to other networks. We're going to see how that liquidity is and the trading volume, etc., and the number of pools, all that kind of stuff. Then we're going to get into website traffic. So this is like users actually going to these websites. These things are detached from the price, right? The price is what you're going to be able to see in the marketplace, where website traffic is not going to dictate the price, but they're going to be correlated in some fashion, because if website traffic is growing every single week, week over week over week, what do you think is going to happen to price over time? Same thing goes with content creators. We're going to take a look at the YouTube searches or YouTube content creators. These are people on YouTube making content as it pertains to Bittensor, tau, dtau, etc. Is that growing over time? Because if more creators are making content around Bittensor, what do you think happens to awareness in the marketplace? We're going to take a look at it on TikTok and on Instagram as well. And we're also going to get into the YouTube search volume, which is very interesting. So let's dive right into it. Also, if you want to check out the sponsor, link down below, or right below. So this is tau stats. What I find very interesting about this is the wallets. If you, I don't have CoinMarketCap up here, but if we take a look at CoinMarketCap for a second, I'll pull this up here. CoinMarketCap is going to show us all the top currencies, right? So let's take a look at this. We have, Bitcoin as number one here, Ethereum, XRP, Tether, BNB. Now, if you go all the way to the top 10, Tron, because that's where I think we should be comparing these two, probably to the top 5, right? Any one of these top 10, if you look at like the number of wallets associated with that token, say for Bittensor, the number of wallets associated with that, or Ethereum, is in the millions. XRP, probably in the millions. I looked up Tron, and that's in, I think, over north of 100 million. ADA, and this, excuse me, I don't know these. I didn't do deep research of this, but this is north of 5 million for ADA. Doge has, a shitload of different, I think this was 5 million. ADA was different. All of these top 10 tokens have a tremendous number of holders of their token. Now, look at the number of wallets for Bittensor. It's growing by like 2% per week, which is freaking crazy. What is that? Like a 200% annualized rate? This is a weekly rate here. So like just since the right before Christmas and New Year's, which is probably a really slow time, to the 12th, right? So 20 days or something like that. It's grown by, well, let's see, 6%, right? So it's got a 6% growth in 20 days. This is astonishing. And also because when you put this into perspective, there's less than 200,000 wallets for Tau. But if we go back to CoinMarketCap, Tau is like the top 50. Let's do 39. Tau is 39 in terms of cryptocurrency ranking by market cap, right? So Tau has a market cap that is 39. However, if you look at like 38 all the way up, a ton of these other cryptos above here have wallet counts that is a freaking like multitude greater. So when you think about this, there's, whoops, just stop sharing there for a second, press the wrong button. The number of wallets that own Tau at the moment is tiny in comparison to these other wallets, these other cryptocurrencies. And that means that nobody knows about it, but the people who do know about it are buying larger quantities of it or owning larger quantities to drive the price up. This is the volume, the 24-hour volume. This is taken directly from Tau stats over time. I can zoom in and see what it is. 186 million for that. The percentage stake, the reason I think percentage stake is interesting and it has been dropping over time is because it has to do with liquidity. The smaller the liquidity, the greater the price volatility at any time something happens. So whether that's a whale that wants to sell or somebody that wants to sell a large quantity of Tau, if there's a smaller amount of circulating supply, i.e. a greater number of stakers or percentage of total supply that is staked, then that means liquidity is smaller, so the price volatility, meaning up or down, is going to increase. The smaller the supply, the greater the price volatility, which is very interesting when detail comes out. The next thing we took a look at was this contract address for wrapped Tau. So if we pull this up here, this is DEX Screener. So anybody else can pull this data. You have the liquidity and the 24-hour trading volume. This is what we're tracking on here. So we see liquidity, the number of pools has changed quite significantly. It was dropping for a couple of weeks and it just started to increase. The liquidity has changed just slightly, right? But if you put this into perspective in terms of the price change, this is when I actually input the data, this is the price, and the price has changed. So you're like, okay, if price goes up, then the liquidity goes up as a representation if you quantify it in USD dollars, right? So like you have a 25% increase in price week over week, but an 18% increase in liquidity. So the liquidity actually went down even though the price went up by 25%. So there was a drawing out of liquidity. And on a tangent, when you think about the DTAO implementation, so like in this space, like the DEX space for wrapped Tau, liquidity is determined by the participants in the market. So I can go provide liquidity on Uniswap for wrapped Tau or any one of these other places. I can go provide liquidity, right? On any one of these pools, or I can create my own pool to supply liquidity, or I can withdraw that. Now with DTAO, when that launches, liquidity can only stay flat or increase. So how is that going to impact things when DTAO launches and these liquidity pools for the subnets are only going to increase in liquidity? That's, I think, going to decouple So now, how is that going to impact things? I don't know. Like, people would think that you're saying decouple from the marketplace, then that's going to be a good thing, or that means price goes up. I don't know if that's the case. I just think that if you have liquidity that is manipulated by the structure of the network, so like liquidity cannot go down in these subnet pools, it can only go up through emissions from the network. So when tau is emitted into the network and the d tau is emitted into the network, into these subnet pools, that increases the liquidity in each one of these pools. How is that going to impact things when liquidity in a bear market, let's say? So normally in a bear market, liquidity goes down, liquidity dries up. When liquidity dries up, as we were just talking about, price volatility increases, right? So if liquidity cannot go down, what does that mean to price volatility? First, you would assume that price volatility would go down, because even during bear markets, the way that d tau is going to be implemented, it only allows for liquidity to increase or stay flat. So that's good. I'm super curious to see how that plays out. We have the number of turns. So this is just volume divided by liquidity. This is like the amount of volume traded based upon the amount of liquidity in there. If you have something like this, right? This is before the price change. So like I tracked this and I was like, I think I posted that on Twitter, that if you have an increase in the amount of turns, so like there was $3.7 million worth of trading volume in USD dollars from 9.6 million of liquidity. So it's a 39% of trading in a 24-hour period of time. That would imply that the price movement is ready to start to move in some direction. Could be up, could be down. And what we had the following week was a increase like 25% in the price. So we're going to continue to track this over time. We saw that we had a high spike in turns, and then we had a drop down, right? Went from 3.7 to 2.5. Why? The volume went down, the trading volume went down per 24 hours, but the actual liquidity went up by 18%, right? So you'd expect that not much would happen, but we're seeing an increase, again, just a small amount of an increase in trading volume as represented of this total. And remember, this does not include like any other platforms where like Binance or MEXC or Gate.io. This is not including that. This is just in the decentralized world. After this, I went through and took a look at SimilarWeb. Like, what is SimilarWeb, right? Let me pull it up here. SimilarWeb is kind of just like an analytics tool that allows you to see their ranking of a website and give you estimates for traffic and several other things. So what I did is I took several of the sites that I'm aware of in the network. So Bittensor.com, .org, Tau Stats, Tau Pill, and Tau Times. And then let's see how they're ranked over time, because these are people who are actually going to these websites. This is independent of price, right? These are people who are going to these. So if we see a continual increase in the ranking, meaning these sites are becoming more popular relative to other sites in the space, then you would expect that something would happen in the future at some point related to the price. Because these are people who are out there seeking information or going to these places to find information. So they're going to this specific website. So let's take a look at this. Bittensor.com. If you look over the past 20 days, has increased by about 10,000 spots, 9,000 spots in terms of its popularity has gained. It's gotten more popular over the last 20 days. .org, a couple 100,000 spots, about 250,000 spots in terms of their popularity. Tau Stats, interestingly, is on the cusp of 250. This is the most popular in the globe. Let's go back over here. So if you look at this, this is the worldwide ranking for these sites. So this is comparing to all other websites. When you look at all other websites, Tau Stats is in the top nearly 250 websites. So this is, I find this interesting to track because this is going to crack 250 soon. We've had 1 week of growth here. We've had 4 weeks for bittensor.org. There's been 4 weeks of increasing traffic to their website. For bittensor.com, there's been, 4 weeks is here as well. Or no, I'm sorry. It got worse. But overall, it's gotten better over the time period. Top stats has increased over the 4 weeks and increased since last week. Top Hill, I don't think this person's doing anything with their site because we've had 4 weeks of decreasing growth, or the site just sucks. Top Hill, like that site probably just not very good, and the person who or people behind it are probably not updating it. So this one we might drop off if we can find a better representation for this. Tao Times is in the top 5 million sites on the internet, which is pretty crazy. It's gotten worse the last 3 weeks here, but still about 800,000 spots greater than it was 4 weeks ago on the 20th. Let's go to the next metric. So this next one is called SEMrush. So if you're into SEO or that type of thing, SEO is search engine optimization. I just added this one in today. Let's put in today's date, which was 1/12/2025. So this one is the domain authority and the keywords associated with these. Let's go over here for a second. So this is SEMrush. It's a very nerdy thing, but it's like SEO, search engine optimization, to see how these sites are doing. The higher the domain authority on Google, the more traffic it's basically going to get to this site. This is the number of keywords that people are searching for and then finding, say this one's bittensor.com, this one's bittensor.org, right? So like these are the number of keywords that they're using to find these websites. I just took the top 3 today to take a look at. But what's interesting is that Tao Stats actually has a higher domain authority than bittensor.com or bittensor.org, which I found was very interesting. But this is where you're going to go to, probably most people are going to go to stake their Tao versus like bittensor.org or bittensor.com. They're going to go to learn or read their documents type thing. Now, the keywords for each one of these, bittensor.com actually has a greater number of keywords people are using to find the site. And Bittensor Tao Stats is closer to bittensor.com, which is interesting because bittensor.com has a greater number of keywords people are using to find the site, but they have a worse domain authority. When we come back over here, Tao Stats has a higher ranking on SimilarWeb versus bittensor.com. So after taking a look at these, one of the things that I like to look at is kind of like the heartbeat of America or the world. And if you think about like how do you find like the essentials of the world for something? Well, if you were doing, say, your blood work, your doctor's going to give you different panels to do to try to find the things that are most important for what they're looking for. Well, if you look at Google Trends, Google is the largest search engine in the world, and YouTube is the second largest search engine in the world. So people go to YouTube and Google and they search for shit and they track it on Google Trends. So you get to actually see how something is tracking. But it's not necessarily as interesting if you just know how one thing is moving over time. So we're comparing it to crypto AI. So like, this is what it looks like. We're looking over the past 90 days worldwide on the web or on YouTube search volume. Because this is going to capture the most amount of data. Check this out though, which I found interesting. Since around Christmas time, we haven't had a drop in search volume. If you see right here, like basically non-existent. There's not a lot of people searching, or times like this, right? Not a lot of people searching. There's these dips throughout these periods over the last 90 days where people are not searching, right? This is Bittensor and Bittensor Tau. So Bittensor Tau is 2 words, so there's always going to be less search volume for something that has 2 words than there is something that has 1 word. But both of these have maintained search volume now relative to crypto.ai. They're tiny in comparison. Let's take a look here. Over time, so when I measure these, what I'm measuring is the average on Google Trends, right? So that's over here over the 90 days. Average is the 51 for crypto AI and 9 or 5 for on YouTube search. So if we go back over here, that's where that data is coming from. You can see Bittensor's lost a little bit. Bittensor Tau stay the same, while crypto AI, this is gaining. So this is crypto AI search volume is actually increasing on the web, and it's increasing week over week on YouTube searches. So more people are entering the searches for these with each consecutive week, right? We're from 49 to 52 to 53, 42, 47, 52. So there's more people looking for crypto AI related stuff on the web and on YouTube. And in my opinion, the Bittensor is the best option in that space related to crypto AI. Maybe not the most flashy, and it's definitely more complex than other ones to try to understand, which is, that is like part of the benefit of it, because then you only get really intelligent people involved. And like when you really only get intelligent people involved, eventually they'll be able to create something and do something really phenomenal. So we're going to continue to track this and see how these change relative to this over time. Now, we talked about demand earlier. So this is people who are actually creating content, right? Like I am creating content on the internet as it relates to Bittensor. So the more people who create content on the internet as it relates to something will grow the awareness, because these platforms like Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube all give you free reach. So like you can create content on the internet and you get a certain number of impressions on your content, even if your content's very shitty, right? Like this video probably doesn't have a ton of views. And I think one of the things that we're actually going to add to this is the number of views that we track on a daily bit, which we'll get into this in a second, but we're going to add views to this so we get a gauge of like the content creators, the amount of people who are putting out content, but then also the amount of content that's actually being consumed by the people who are putting it out over a 24-hour period of time. So let's go through this. This is the least interesting one. This is Instagram. They don't give you the exact data on this, but there's 1,000+ posts that use the hashtag Bittensor. Hashtag Bittensor Tau, there's less than 100. This is basically just stay the same because they don't give you granular data. Posts on TikTok, this was interesting. It looks like 2 posts actually got removed for Bittensor Tau, but for just Bittensor in general, over this time period, what is it, a couple percent increase? Yeah, so a 3% increase in the number of videos that have been published on TikTok that have the hashtag Bittensor on those videos. It's kind of interesting. 3% increase in, this is on a global platform. There's a 3% increase. Yes, it's only 1,200. So it'll be interesting to see how this changes. Now, for this one, I want to explain this one a little bit. Going over to YouTube. So if you go to YouTube and you search for a term, then you go through and filter this in terms of today. So what I did is I did this, and then I went through and I counted all the videos that have Bittensor, VTAL, Tau, either in the thumbnail, see how it's right here in the thumbnail, or in the title of it. So something like this, right? This one right here does not have it in it, so we're not counting it because it's not in the title. And if you look in the thumbnail, it's not in the thumbnail. Well, this one does have it on the title and in the thumbnail. So we're counting this, not twice, we're just counting it once. And if we look at this data this is only published over the last 24 hours. If we look at this, in the 24 hours of prior to 12:30 when the date 12/30/24, when I did this, there was 12 pieces of content. Then on 11/5, I'm sorry, 1/5, there was 13 pieces of content. And now, over the last 24 hours, as of 2:45 p.m. on the 12th, there was 18 pieces of content. So this is bullish. That is a large increase, like 50% increase in the amount of, 50% increase in the content that was created on YouTube over a 24-hour period. So when I'm taking a look at all of these, I'm trying to gain an understanding of what is going on in the broader marketplace that other people are not seeing by using data like content creators, like search volume, like the keywords or the website traffic, to really understand what is going on in this space. Because the supply side of the equation as it relates to Bittensor, we already understand. That's not changing necessarily. Once detail comes out, it actually will. You can click on the little icon right over here in the corner, which is my picture, and then go to the channel, and you can see I can explain how that is potentially going to be affected in the future. Now, to leave you with a really boring ending of the video.